In 2005, a 15-year-old young girl from Reading, Pennsylvania was offered a record deal after being discovered by Scott Borchetta of Big Machine Records. She had dreamed of making country music since she was 10 years old. The girl was Taylor Swift, and she would move on to change the music industry forever. So just to understand the magnitude of her career, let's look at the numbers first. The Eras Tour was the highest-grossing world tour of all time. She has the most Album of the Year wins at the Grammys, surpassing Stevie Wonder and Frank Sinatra, who were tied for the record of 3 with her. Until Midnight's won the Album of the Year, and she now has 4 wins. Maybe Life of a Showgirl will be the 5th win, which would be crazy. She's had the most songs on the Billboard Hot 100 at once. The Eras Tour was the highest-grossing concert film. It was the highest single-day attendance at multiple stadiums, including a Creaser Stadium in Pittsburgh, Lumen Field in Seattle, Sun Stadium in Nashville, Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis, and Allianz Park in Sao Paulo, Brazil. She has the most weeks on the Billboard Hot 200 as a solo artist, surpassing Elvis. She's the only artist to have 10 singles with over 1 billion streams each on Spotify. She's the most awarded artist in the history of the American Music Awards. Her engagement post is the most liked Instagram post. Fearless is the most awarded country album in 1989 and is the most awarded pop album. When she was 15, she signed a 13-year record deal with Big Machine Records. She was the first artist signed to the label, and when she was signed, they had no money, no office space, just the name. She released 6 albums under the label, but the contract did not allow her to own her masters. When the contract ended, she would only walk away with the intellectual property and her publishing. They owned her masters, photos, music videos, and basically everything other than her IP and her publishing rights. When her contract eventually ended, she did attempt to purchase the masters and was denied the opportunity. At the time her contract ended, Taylor's music made up 80% of Big Machine Records' revenue. She was offered ownership of her catalog, but on one condition: she had to renew her contract, and for every album she created, she would earn one back. She wouldn't own the 6 new albums, she would only own the 6 old ones, so she denied it because it would have trapped her in an endless cycle of creating albums and return ownership of old ones. She would never ultimately own all of her albums unless she left the record label. Scooter Braun bought Big Machine Records, and Taylor's masters went along with it. She found this news out along with the rest of the world. Scooter did try to come out and say that her father, Scott Swift, was a shareholder, and so he was invited to shareholder meetings where they discussed the sale before it went public. But this often confuses people and makes them think that she lied about this aspect. What Scooter forgot to put in that was that Scott Swift turned it down because there was an NDA that he had to sign where he couldn't tell anyone about this, including Taylor. Scott Borchetta also lied to Taylor about this sale, with Taylor even saying that she couldn't believe it was sold to Scooter.
And so you didn't see it coming?
No.
So how did you find out?
I found out when it was online, like when it hit the news.
Nobody in your inner circle
Nobody knew.
And you didn't smell it?
No. I knew he would sell my music. I knew he would do that. I couldn't believe who he sold it to, because we've had endless conversations about Scooter Braun, and he has 300 million reasons to conveniently forget those conversations.
They had had multiple conversations about the sale, and Scott said it wouldn't ever be sold to Scooter. Scooter Braun was also the manager of multiple people who had tormented and bullied Taylor throughout her entire career, even assisting with the production of the famous music video. But in 2020, she shared that she had reapproached working with Scooter Braun to regain her masters, but she turned it down when she learned that it would come with an ironclad NDA where she could never speak ill of Scooter, which really makes me think about all the people who are signed to Scooter and haven't come out in support of Taylor. I wonder if it could be because they are signed to the same NDA that Taylor was offered, where they can never speak ill of Scooter. Feeling defeated, Taylor went on to do what Kelly Clarkson iconically suggested, that she re-record her masters for her first 6 albums, making them better in 6 never-before-heard tracks, or vault tracks. She even hints at this in the Evermore album when she says, "He's got my past frozen behind glass, but I've got me." She also influenced so many people to get it in their contracts that they own their music outright from the beginning of the contract, or that they will purchase their masters back at the end of the contract. And because of her, people have walked away from huge record deals because they couldn't own their masters or their publishing. The re-records not only provided us with an opportunity to support her by seamlessly swapping out old versions for the newly recorded Taylor's versions, but also gave Taylor a chance to prove on these old versions of her old vocals, something that she talked about struggling with the Reputation re-record. She didn't feel like she could improve upon it. She says, I know. What about Rev TV? Full transparency, I haven't even recorded a quarter of it. The Reputation album was so specific to that time in my life, I kept hitting a stopping point when I tried to remake it. The defiance, longing to be understood while feeling purposely misunderstood, the desperate hope, that shame-born snarl and mischief. To be perfectly honest, it's the one album in those first 6 that I thought couldn't be improved upon by redoing it, not the music or photos or videos, so I just kept putting it off. In the spring of this year, after the Eras Tour had ended, her mom and brother went to the company that owned her masters and got them back. All 6 eras officially came home.
Send lawyers or management, like in a big crew. I sent my mom and my brother, who I work with, to LA, and they they sat down and they this happens. I don't ever really talk about it because it's
huge.
They sat down. with Shamrock Capital, and they told them what this meant for me. Like, they told them the whole story of all the times we've tried to buy it, all the times it's fallen through, all the times we had gotten plans together and figured out something we thought was going to work and it didn't at the last minute. And so, like, my mom calls me afterwards. She's like, look, they were wonderful. They heard us out. We have no idea which way they're going to go with this. And so I was like, I get it. I haven't gotten my hopes up about this in a decade. And so it was a couple months after the Super Bowl. We're in Kansas City. And I get a call from my mom, and she's like, you got your music. Yeah. And so sorry that it's literally been so long since this happened. It's every time I talk about it. She was like, you got your music. And I just, like, very dramatically hit the floor, for real. Like, honestly, just started.
So now let's talk about another way that she has changed the music industry, the streaming battle. In June 2015, she published a letter to her Tumblr account called To Apple, Love Taylor. I wrote this to explain why I'll be holding my album 1989 from the new streaming service Apple Music. I feel this deserves an explanation because Apple has been and will continue to be one of my biggest partners in selling music and creating ways for me to connect with my fans. I respect the company and truly ingenious minds that have created a legacy based on innovation and pushing the right boundaries. I'm sure you're aware that Apple Music will be offering a free 3-month trial to anyone who signs up for the service. I'm not sure that you know that Apple Music will not be paying writers, producers, or artists for those 3 months. I find it to be shocking, disappointing, completely unlike this historically progressive and generous company. This is not about me. Thankfully, I am on my 5th album and can support myself, my band, crew, and entire management team by playing live shows. This is about the new artist or band that has just released their first single and will not be paid for its success. This is about the young songwriter who just got his or her first cut and thought that the royalties from that would get them out of debt. This is about the producer who works tirelessly to innovate and create, just like the innovators and creators at Apple are pioneering in their field, but will not get paid for a quarter of the years of plays on their songs. Not complaints of a spoiled, petulant child. These are the echo sentiments of every artist, writer, and producer in my social circles who are afraid to speak up publicly because we admire and respect Apple so much. I simply do not respect this particular call. I realize that Apple is working towards a goal of paid streaming. I think that is beautiful progress. We know how astronomically successful Apple has been, and we know that this incredible company has the money to pay artists, writers, and producers for the 3-month trial period, even if it is free for the fans trying it out. 3 months is a long time to go unpaid, and it is unfair to ask anyone to work for nothing. I say this with love, reverence, and admiration for everything else Apple has done. I hope that soon I can join them in the progression towards a streaming model that seems fair to those who create this music. I think this could be the platform that gets it right. But I say to Apple with all due respect, it's not too late to change this policy, and change minds of those in the music industry will be deeply and gravely affected by this. We don't ask you for free iPhones, so please don't ask us to provide you with our music for no compensation. I think this was incredibly brave of her to do because it was something that not a lot of people were doing, and she didn't know the amount of backlash that she was going to get from this. She did get a lot, which we'll get into later, but less than 24 hours later, Apple changed their policy and began paying artists, producers, and writers for the free 3-month trial period. Taylor then agreed to upload 1989 to the platform on its release. But this was not her first time dealing with a big streaming company. A year earlier, she moved her entire catalog from Spotify because she had concerns about the business model and how artists would be impacted. But strangely, for both of these moves, Taylor was called greedy, which is very confusing to me because she's not greedy if she's pulling her entire catalog and not getting paid for it. In 2005, a 15-year-old girl received a record deal, and that record deal would change the way the music industry will operate forever.